Okay, today we're going to be making spaghetti. I have here approximately half a pot. I think this is a 16 quart container. You can see it's a pretty good sized container. And I have it about half full of water. Alright, the reason is because it's going to take a little while for the spaghetti to cook. Now I have my spaghetti right here. And one of the secrets about spaghetti is knowing how much to cook for how many people. I'm going to be making 2 people's worth of spaghetti here. So what I've got is I've got my water on the stove and I'm getting it ready to start boiling, and I sprinkle it with salt. The salt helps it to start boiling. I put in about a couple of tablespoonfuls, maybe, probably not that much, probably just a little bit more than a tablespoonful, but it causes the water molecules to accept the heat better. Now, I'm going to let this start boiling before I add any spaghetti, but in order to know how much I'm going to be making, I'm going to be making spaghetti for 2 people. Generally, about a 1-inch diameter amount like this here is good for 1 person. So you can pretty well double that, okay? But doubling in spaghetti isn't necessarily the same. What you're going to do is you're going to take about the same amount again, okay, and put it together so that you have approximately about like that, 1.5 to 2 inches maybe across. If you set it up, you should be able to clamp it in your hand with your forefinger and your thumb. That's for 2 people. The more people you add, the larger you make it. When you get to where you're having 4 people, you probably will not be able to close your thumb and your middle finger around the patch of spaghetti. This is about right for 2 people. So I wanted to show you how to measure so that you know about how much spaghetti to cook for how many people you're going to be cooking for. For right now, I'm going to let this rest in the jar here and keep it ready to go until my water is boiling. It won't do any good to put that in until the water is boiling. It will just lay there and kind of gum together. I want it to start to roll when I put it in. So my water is on the boil. I'll be back in a few minutes and we'll move on with this. And I still have spaghetti sauce to make. I'll show you how to do that once I get this on and boiling good. Okay, as I was saying before, usually what you do is figure at least about 1 inch diameter in your hand, okay, per person. Now, of course, it doesn't matter if you have a little bit more left over. You can always, put it back in the fridge and eat it later. You can even freeze it and thaw it out later. This is for 1 person. Alright, and I like to break mine in half because that way I get it all down into the water at one time. So I just break it like that and drop it down in. And then I'm going to prepare for another person, okay, about the same amount going in, about 1 inch diameter. And it's not an exact measure. And I put that in, and then I get my spaghetti spoon, or any other spoon for that matter, and right away I start stirring. If I just let it lay down there and gum together, it just kind of sticks to the bottom of the pan, and I don't want that to happen, so I stir it. Keep the spaghetti moving for a few minutes, and then I'm going to let this boil for a few minutes. Usually you're going to boil your spaghetti somewhere between 7 and 15 minutes. 5 minutes usually isn't enough. 15 minutes might be getting a little longer than it should be. You have to kind of judge, and what I do is I pull a piece of spaghetti out and just pinch it in my fingers. If it pinches through easily, that's pretty good, and I figure that it's done. Different people use different techniques. I've heard of people throwing it up against the wall. I'm sorry, I don't like to do that. I like to keep my walls as clean as possible, as well as my food. So I just pinch it in my fingers if it pinches through, and yes, it burns a little bit, but it's not gonna. You're not gonna hold on to it that long. Just pull a piece out and pinch it, okay? And if it pinches through with your fingers, it's done. There are some people who like it a little more what they call al dente, where it's not quite as squishy and soft. That's your choice, but cook it to your own taste. Spaghetti is something that basically all you have to do is put it on and boil. The trick is to make the sauce. Well, my trick is I use canned spaghetti sauce. I will add my own spices and that kind of thing to it as we go. I also add bell peppers and onions to my mix. And I'm going to add, just because I don't look like I have enough spaghetti in there, I'm going to add just a little bit more. That means that if somebody wants an extra helping, we've got it. So I'm adding not quite, half an inch worth diameter of spaghetti, which is maybe another serving for each person if they want that much. And this is one meal. This is not expected to last indefinitely. This is only going to be for one good meal. Anything left over is a bonus. Okay, well, I'm going to let that cook for a few minutes. In a few minutes, I'm going to shift it to another burner so I have this burner free. And I will start my spaghetti sauce. I'll be back in just a couple minutes with that when we're ready to start the sauce. Okay, we're back. My spaghetti has boiled for about 10 minutes or so. I'm done with it, but I'm going to let it soak for a little while. I still have it on warm. That way it will stay warm and hot for me for dinner. It's cooked to my liking. It won't continue to cook anymore, but it will still absorb some water. It will still soften up. I'm going to put a tablespoonful or so of olive oil in my pan and throw in some bell pepper and onion. I usually lose a little bit of it. Okay, and I let that start to cook at medium-high temperature. I want it to get cooking quickly because I'm going to be adding hamburger to it. I have here approximately a pound of hamburger. It could be a little bit more, it could be a little less. It's not exact. But like I say, measurements are subjective. They don't have to be exact. I'm also going to add a little bit of garlic. Now, I don't have fresh garlic cloves right at this time. I have garlic in a jar. It's already crushed, okay, or minced, okay, and I'm just going to take my knife and pull out just what I can put on the end of my knife blade. This is very strong, so you want to be careful with it. If you like a lot of heavy garlic taste, you can add more, but this is going to be considerably stronger than you think coming from that jar. I prefer fresh garlic to minced garlic, but you do deal with what you've got. Now, I'm hearing that the sizzle here as things are starting to heat up, okay, and I'm going to stir the oil and the peppers and the onions together because I want them to cook and mingle and coat themselves with oil. And I love to hear that sizzle. It's going to take a few minutes for that to cook. I'm going to take my pound of hamburger and I'm going to break it up into smaller pieces so it's a little easier to work with, and mix it right in with the bell peppers and the onion. Now, if you want to make meatballs, you can make meatballs with this instead. It works out the same way. But, like I say, everything I'm using is pre-packaged. There's nothing particular about it. But a lot of the pre-packaged things that you're using are the same things you would be using if you weren't using pre-packaged. It's just they've done the work for you and blended certain things together for you so that you don't have to add a lot of spices and whatnot, because that confuses a lot of people. Okay, we're going to let this cook up here for a few minutes. You want to brown it. This is going to have to be watched. I'm going to sign off for a few minutes, and we'll be back whenever the mixture is done and we're ready to start making our sauce. As I've been cooking this for just a couple of minutes here, I've continued to break up the hamburger. This is my way. Like I say, if you want to use meatballs, that's fine. I prefer mine as a meaty sauce, but you can do it the other way. But you can see it's still a little on the pink side. I like to have it reasonably well done. Any kind of ground meat I like to have cooked pretty well. A steak, yes, I'll eat my steaks medium rare, but on ground meat I prefer to have it cooked a little bit better. That's because it goes through a grinder, and sometimes bacteria is picked up from a grinder. No matter how clean you are, there is still bacteria, and I don't want to infect any of my food. So what I do is I allow this to cook. Now I'm going to turn this down, okay, considerably lower, okay, so that it doesn't burn. And I'm going to cover it with the lid. And you can see that the hamburger has made its own grease, okay. In addition to the tablespoonful I put in there of olive oil, it has made its own grease. All that will be drained off before I make my sauce. So we'll be back in just a moment with further results. For right now, I'm going to let this cook. Okay, while it's cooking, I'm going to add a few spices. Now I have here a whole oregano, okay. I don't know why they call it that, because it's kind of ground up. And I put about what I would think is half a teaspoonful or so there in my hand. It's not an exact measurement, but I like to crush it up a little bit. Okay, so I put it in my hand and I rub it with my fingers over top of my skillet, okay, while the hamburger, onions, bell peppers are all cooking. Okay, you can see, if you look down into the skillet there, you can see the oil that has formed, and I'm going to have to drain all that off in a couple of minutes. But I've got the temperature turned way down now to where it's just barely cooking, and I'm adding some spices. I'm putting in a little onion powder, okay, just a few shakes. I'm putting in some garlic powder, and again, just a couple of shakes here, okay. This will help enhance the garlic that's already in it. Some garlic salt. This will add a little saltiness to it, and still have that garlicky taste. And then I'm going to put in a little bit of parsley. And again, I take this and sprinkle it into my hand, and I'm only putting in about a quarter of a teaspoon, okay, and I'm crushing it up in my hand, again, just as I did before, okay. and infusing it in to the mix that's already in the skillet. Okay, now that's all the spicing I do. I mean, and it isn't absolutely necessary because I've got the real thing in there. I've got garlic in there. I've got the pepper. Now, some people like bay leaves and other assorted spices. Spice it to your heart's content. If there's something particular that you like, go ahead and add it. It's not going to hurt anything. Always remember, add less than you think you're going to need. You can always go back and add more. If you add too much, it's awfully hard to take it out. But cooking should be fun. Have a good time with it. Okay, now that has cooked pretty much long enough. I see that the meat is browned. Okay, the onions are transparent. Okay, so I'm ready to drain this. Now I have a wire sifter colander that I use to pour this through, and I will show you what I basically do to get rid of the oil, but most of it can be poured right off. And what you do is just scoop down everything towards this side of your skillet, and you can see that the stuff is starting to float to the top here. Okay, you can pour a good portion of that off before you even go through the screen. Okay, let it set and drain for just a moment. It's draining from the back forward. So when I pour this, I can just pour this into a bucket, down my garbage disposal, what have you, okay, and drain it. So I'm going to go ahead and drain this. I'll be right back. Okay, I've drained the grease off of my mixture here. I'm putting it back on the stove at a low temperature, and I'm about to add spaghetti sauce. The spaghetti sauce is already pre-made. Okay, this is a well-known brand, and it is what they call their meat sauce. You can buy this for about $1 a can at any supermarket, at your dollar store, what have you. And all you do is add this to your meat. You don't need to add any water. Just scoop as much as you can from the can so you don't waste any. And begin stirring and mixing with your meat. Now you don't really want to cook the meat anymore. It's done. What you want to do is cook the mixture up so that it's warm. The sauce, all it is tomato sauce with a certain amount of spicing by the manufacturer. It's tomato puree. If you want to use just plain tomato sauce and do the spicing like I just did, you can do that, or you can completely forego the spicing that I added and just use what the company that manufactures the spaghetti sauce has. It's the same thing. Okay? You're going to be told that this spaghetti sauce is better than this spaghetti sauce and all that. All it is tomato sauce. And the way it's spiced, the way it's prepared is the difference, and it may have a little different flavor. Find one that you like and use it. There's nothing wrong with it. And it's just tomato sauce. And you see what I've got here now is a nice mixture. Okay, I'm going to put the lid on this and let it heat up a little bit, and then we're going to have a spaghetti dinner. This has been on cooking now for several minutes. You can see that the sauce is bubbling. Okay, I've continuously stirred it. Okay, right now it is piping hot. Okay, I have had the spaghetti on warm so that it stays warm. And what I'm going to do now is take some of it out. Okay, and what I'm going to do is use what is known as a colander. That's this device right here. And I'm going to take this over to the sink. And I'm going to drain a serving of spaghetti. Now I'm doing this over top of the pan. The reason I'm using the sink is because I don't want to have an accident and maybe spill something all in the stove or anything of that nature. And I'm about to put, what I consider one good serving of spaghetti on this plate, and I'm letting it drain back into the pot. And once it's drained, I will take the spaghetti and deposit it on a plate. I can now turn the tomato sauce off, give it one last stir to make sure that it's nicely done. And spoon some over the top of the spaghetti that's already in the plate. And there you have a beautiful spaghetti dinner. Sounded complicated when I started, but it really wasn't very complicated. I didn't measure anything. I made 1 pound of hamburger. It will probably last just about as long as the noodles. I can always make a little bit more of the noodles if possible, but I can't make more of the spaghetti sauce unless I make a whole run of spaghetti sauce. So I find I limit myself to 1 pound of meat for the spaghetti, and it usually works out, and for 2 people to eat a decent meal of spaghetti. Okay, I'm going to go enjoy my dinner. I thank you all. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video where I'll teach you how to make garlic toast.